BBOR Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia at heart and from around the globe. Okay, hello everybody. Today is Friday, and on Fridays this year I've been releasing some Zodiac Killer interviews, and over the next several weeks I'll be putting out a couple more. But you can also tune in every Monday for an episode about the Zodiac Killer called Just That Zodiac Monday, and I'm going to be incorporating interview segments into more of the Zodiac Monday episodes. And if you want to follow along with all of these discussions, you can hit the like button and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. In this episode, I will be talking to Joseph Shores. He is someone who has closely followed the Zodiac Killer mystery, and I recently had Eddie McNamara on the program to talk about possible Zodiac hoax letters and also the possibility of the Zodiac's first crime, the Lake Herman Road murders, not being genuine Zodiac activity. And Joseph Shores provided a lot of the source material and research that Eddie McNamara was discussing. But there's another subject that Joseph wanted to discuss in our interview, and that is Richard Gaikowski as a Zodiac killer suspect. Now, the first 2 or 3 minutes, we will be talking about Lake Herman Road, the murders of David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen, as previously stated, the first Zodiac crime that took place on December 20th of 1968, and then we will look at some of the reasons why Joseph doesn't believe that Richard Gaikowski was the Zodiac killer. And if you guys have something to say, please put your ideas in the comment section down below. I know that a lot of people who follow this program think that Gaik was the Zodiac, and they have a lot of information, and they have some very strong stances that they're taking on these subjects. And one of the reasons why I do this show is to hear different perspectives on true crime cases, especially the unsolved ones. So if you want to challenge anything that Joseph is saying or things that I am saying, please feel free to dispute the facts in the comment section. And this also goes for anyone who does not believe that Richard Gaikowski was the Zodiac. If you want to provide additional information or make a case that you think is more accurate, you can put your idea in the comment section down below. And also, please feel free to look for something new on BuyMeACoffee.com. BuyMeACoffee.com/BlackBoxNet88 is the website that I've used for several years now to get donations for the show, but they have a podcast zone that is available in their posts section, and I will soon be doing a podcast called The Zodiac and True Crime Talk. It's mostly going to be a one-off, either next week or the week after. I will make another announcement when I release that special bonus podcast on buymeacoffee.com. And yes, you can listen 100% for free. You don't have to pay any money to listen to that. They just have an audio podcast zone on their website. And also, if you do make a donation or contribution to help support the show, you'll get a shout out on Zodiac Monday. It's a great way to help the channel and all of these efforts. And if there are other guests that you would like to hear on the program, you can put your ideas in the comment section down below. And other people have just simply requested to be on the program to discuss their findings. So, I mean, all of that is welcome. You can write the show at BlackBoxOnlineRadio at AOL.com. Richard Gaikowski is one of the most frequently discussed Zodiac killer suspects. He was born in 1936, on March 14th, actually, Pi Day, as some people call March 14th. He was born in Watertown, South Dakota. He spent a large portion of his career as a journalist and writer, working for various newspapers. He ran a newspaper called The Good Times, but Richard Gaikowski had other jobs and professions. He worked a lot with films, music. He even designed flyers for other musical events, and he seems like someone who explored many different fields, even learning a lot about computers, being self-taught in computers in the 1980s. Richard Gaikowski was also an Army medic, and he covered a lot of different areas in his life. But right now I would like to play the audio clip. This is the interview that I've done with Joseph Shores, and please tune in on Zodiac Monday for some more Zodiac killer interviews, and feel free to check out some of the older episodes on Black Box Online Radio. I'm going to welcome Joseph to the program.
Correct.
Now, I do have one challenge question to you, and it's actually something that's been discussed by Mark Hewitt when he was a guest on this program, and it relates to how, let's say, if the Zodiac killer didn't commit the Lake Herman Road murders, why would he take credit for them, knowing fully well that someone else might be convicted for it and he would be exposed as a liar? How would that make sense?
Yeah, people say that theory, and then it doesn't like register with me at all. Like Zodiac, he arguably takes credit for Snoozy and Furlon and the dripping pen card, where like he says he has 7 victims and he kills 2 people in August and the dripping pen card. So some people think it's Snoozy and Furlon. He arguably, he takes credit for Richard Vandertit's murder, where he says, I saw someone with a 38, and Richard Vandertit was shot like 2 weeks before with a 38. And then he keeps on increasing his kill score. Like, there's only, 5 Zodiac victims that died. And he keeps on increasing his kill score every letter, until, like, The Exorcist. I mean, the LA Times letter, he says he killed 17 people. The Exorcist letter, which is a possible forgery, he says he killed 37 people. So I don't buy that. Zodiac would never tell a lie, like a lot of people think. Like, this doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay, so you just think he's a habitual liar, and he wouldn't even care if someone else got convicted, and
right. I don't think. I think he lied to, like. I mean, the official position is that he didn't kill Richard Vandertitch, right? Like, what if I have a newspaper article, and it's Paul Avery. He's interviewing this. I mean, not interviewed. He has these quotes from this detective, and this detective said, if Zodiac's implied he killed Richard Vandertitch, he's lying, is what the detective says. So they really didn't like that idea that Zodiac killed Richard Vandertitch. So I just, like, I think he did it to, like, I don't know, boost the image of Zodiac as, like, evil. I don't know.
Okay, though, but as I understand, you have a lot of observations about the Zodiac killer mystery well beyond the Lake Herman Road murders, and you also have a lot to say about Richard Gaikowski as a Zodiac suspect. Would you like to talk about that?
Yeah. So this is... I'm just, like, for Richard Gaikowski, like, the framework that they try to tell us about what happened to him in 1969 is not true. So that's like my problem with it is, all right. So Richard Gaikowski, you're probably more expert than me on him, honestly. But and he worked for Martinez Gazette, right? And then at one point he gets a job at the Albany Knickerbocker, right? Or Knickerbocker.
Well, yes, Martinez News Gazette, and then the Knickerbocker News in Albany.
Right. So he moves from Martinez. I don't know if he lives in Martinez to Albany, and I want to say January 66 or January 67. Do you know? One of those years, right?
Not that date off the top of my head, no.
So he moves, and then, so fast forward, he's in Albany. I don't know if he went on vacation. He might have been went on vacation, whatever, but he's mainly in Albany until, like, October that year. So then he sends a letter to Bob Loomis that says, yeah, what does he say in his October letter? I'm thinking about going to Europe. I'm moving it to this commune, something like that. And then we have his passport that he got that he got permission to go to Europe in November to December, and it says possible, date of departure, possible date back, and then from Europe, Bob Loomis received like 3 letters from him in like January and February, March, from like one of them's from like Nottingham, England. One of them's from Paris. I forgot what the other one's from. So basically what I'm getting at is Richard Gaikowski, he didn't live in California in 1968 during the Lake Herman Road murders. Like, so, I mean, that would work with my theory that the Zodiac didn't even commit Lake Herman Road. But if you think the Zodiac killer committed Lake Herman Road murders, Richard Gaikowski was nowhere near California during December 1968. He was he was either in Albany, where he worked for the Knickerbocker News, and then people like to say that his last article for the Knickerbocker News was in October. No, his Ireland article was in, like, I don't know, February. It came out March. It came out in 1969. So I know he probably resigned from the Knickerbocker News in, like, that fall before he went to Europe. But so this long preamble say it's incorrect to say that because a lot of people like Drew and all these people, they say because Richard Gaikowski plagiarized like a paragraph, not even a paragraph, like 3 sentences in his Ireland article, he wasn't even in Ireland. It's just not the paradigm about Richard Gaikowski in 1969 that makes any sense, because even if he did plagiarize that, all right, it doesn't mean he wasn't in Ireland. Just because, you know, you did, it's like saying, all right, you cheated on your homework, so therefore you weren't in class. It's like it doesn't make any sense. Do you agree with that?
I do. If you cheated on your homework, you could still go to class. I follow that type of thinking. But here's some issues. Let's kind of like bring a little bit more clarity. You were talking about the passport application, right? And that's the one where it says that he's applying for his passport in November of 1968. Now, don't quote me on this. I think it's November 1st is the date of the application. And no, that's the date of departure. Date of departure. The date of departure is November 1st of 1968. Estimated duration of stay, 1 month in Ireland and Northern Ireland, England. You know, he's going overseas. And he was expected to come back on December 1st of 1968. So that's 19 days before the Lake Herman Road murders. Now, I haven't seen his plane tickets or anything, and according to the documentary that was made about the most dangerous animal of all, there are not electronic records of plane tickets before the 1980s. So any type of record like that should not exist. But what is your response to the people who would think that Guy's the Zodiac and just provide that as an explanation? I mean, he was back in the country 19 days before the Lake Herman Road murders.
Well, because he was in Europe in February and January. Like, we know he was in Europe when he was sending his letters to Bob Loomis. Like, people could go. I'll try to get you the letter. Like, people, like, I think Uncle Sporkmas or whatever his name is, he's trying to transcribe the entire letter. So I'll try to get you, like, the letters. You can read the letters. Bob Loomis is sending him letters. Richard Gaikowski is reading what Bob Loomis says, and he's sending him back letters. So he was in Europe when he sent his letter. When Richard Gaikowski mailed his letter from, Nottingham, England to Bob Loomis, he was in Europe. So he was in Europe. Was he? There's, like, he never sent a letter from Ireland, but he was obviously in Ireland. I mean, it's not really, like, I'm 100% sure Richard Gaikowski was in Ireland in 1968. Maybe not. Maybe he didn't leave. Like, there's a theory, people say he didn't leave until January for Europe, which is possible. We don't know his exact date of departure. It's possible that, but there's no proof he was in California. If he wasn't in Europe, he was probably in Albany. There's no proof he was in California. And also, all right, Martinez is at Vallejo, right? Like, it's like a half an hour drive. There's places a half an hour from where I am that I've never been to, right? Like, a half an hour is not nothing. Like, it's possible Richard Gaikowski was never in Vallejo before, like, I don't know, I know, like, Bob Loomis had something to do with Vallejo, but it's possible he was never in Vallejo, like, ever. I don't know.
But wait a second. Richard Gaikowski moved to California in 1963, and I mean, he had all kinds of connections to the state, and he also did his journalistic project called The Battered Typewriter of Dick Gaikowski, where he's, traveling around and writing stories. I don't confess to know too much about that. I mean, and as you have already pointed out, he worked for the Martinez News Gazette, so I mean, what really is to say that he doesn't have connections to these places, especially we're talking December 20th of 1968. That's so close to the Christmas holiday, going home for Christmas or going to visit people during the holiday season. That's totally normal.
Right, but it's normal for what? That he would go. Yeah, some people have surmised that he went to visit Bob Loomis for Christmas in 19 like around the time of the Faraday was killed around Christmas. So
Yeah.
that kind of the theory that he went to visit Bob Lubis for Christmas in 1968 would keep him alive as a Zodiac killer. But what evidence is there for that? Like, we have Bob Lubis state, like, Bob Lubis was on a documentary with Tom Voigt. He didn't say, yeah, in 1968, Richard Gaikowski visited me for Christmas. That would be good evidence that he was there. Who else did he know? Like, also, like, where did Bob Lubis live? Like, if Bob, like, to me, like, again, like, let's see, like, there are places like like, if you lived in Martinez, that's that's not that close to Vallejo. Like, it's not like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go a half an hour. Like, that's still kind of far away. Like, if people, like, as far as suspectology, if you live like an hour, like some people, like Gary Post, he lived like pretty far away from, I think he lived like outside Oakland or something during the time of the Zodiac murders. That's like pretty far from Vallejo. So he just goes like an hour to commit these murders and go, like, to me, Zodiac had local knowledge of Vallejo. I feel pretty strongly about that. And I don't see the evidence that Richard Gaikowski had local knowledge of Vallejo, especially during that time. There's no evidence that he knew Darlene Ferrin, which one of your guests like to say, that, you know, him and Darlene Ferrin had this great romance. There's no evidence of that. So I just don't buy it. I just feel like they like, all right, this is what I wanted to say. If Richard Gaikowski is the Zodiac killer, what is his timeline for 1968, 1969? When did he visit Bob Lubis in Vallejo and committed the Lake Herman Road murders? When did he leave from Europe? Show me like a believable timeline. Don't tell me he was never in Ireland. That's just ridiculous. He was obviously in Ireland. He was obviously in Europe. To say he wasn't is like, you're just making stuff up. Like Tom Voigt was saying, oh, he wasn't actually in Europe. He was using some sort of mail service where he faked being in Europe. Well, then how did he get Bob Lubis's letter? If he faked being in Europe, how did he get Bob Lubis's letter? So, like, people just say things about Gaikowski in 1968 and 1969 that just are just illogical, that obviously didn't happen. And they didn't even put any effort into it. Like, it just makes stuff up about it. And it offends me for some reason.
Okay, though, we've talked about several different points about this. Number one person who did believe that Richard Gaikowski had a relationship with Darlene Ferrin was Ken Narlow, one of the investigators actually on the case, who even said that a month prior to her murder, he could place Gaikowski in Darlene's home. I don't know how he did that. That's just one quotation.
Yeah, I would like to see those quotes. Sorry, I'll let you finish. Sorry.
Well, no, I mean, I would like to see the quotes too, and I wish I could, time travel a little bit and experience all these things firsthand as well. So that's one thing. You're talking about who does Gaikowski know in Vallejo. Well, so many people think that Gaikowski did know Darlene Ferrin if he knew anyone, not only because of that. They don't even care about that quotation from Ken Narlow. They're looking at the Albany connection, the fact that her ex-husband was working in the building for the Albany Times Union, right? And Gaikowski works for the Knickerbocker News. And then they both go into Albany, and then they both go back to California. It's almost like he's following her across the country. And the guest that you were talking about that has previously been on the show is Jeremy Berthiaume, who has more or less centered his Zodiac killer theory on that Richard Gaikowski had this obsession with Darlene Ferrin that went on for several years. Yes, I think that's a fair way of putting it, and that was the reason for a lot of these points. And we've already gone through some possibilities about how the articles from Ireland could have been plagiarized, they could have been faked, he could have used the mail forwarding service, as you brought up. So, what's your response to all of that?
Yeah, like, where's the evidence for this stuff? Like, when people ask me for like my evidence for Lake Herman Road is being unrelated, I show them everything I have. And like, I asked the other day, Tom Voigt's like, I'm like, so he was saying that Richard Gaikowski was accused of rape by one of his like female, coworkers or something like that. So I'm like, all right, where are these quotes from the female coworker that accuses him of rape? And he's like, oh, I'm not showing you. Well, why not? Like if I ever found something that tried to prove my theory, I would just share it. I don't get why he doesn't just share like his evidence.
All right, but I did provide a piece of evidence to you, and I said that Gaik and Darlene both have the Albany connection.
Right, the Albany. I think it's a coincidence. Also, the painting party. So the painting party comes from. So there was this investigation into the suspect William Grant in like the 70s, and they started interviewing one of Darlene's babysitters and their two sisters, and they said like there was this painting party like a month before Darlene was killed, and like this really creepy guy was there. And was that the killer of Darlene? This really creepy guy, and he also he pulled up, by their house one time, and he had some sort of car. But in one of Graceman's books, they named like Pam and God, what was her other sister? I don't know. Pam and her other sister. They name everyone. What?
Was it Christina?
No.
No, the other one.
The one that went to jail. Pam and the one that went to jail. They named all the people that were at the painting party. So we know everyone was at the painting party, and except for one person, the mysterious man in the suit.
Yes, as I said, Jeremy Berthium's the author of So I See You Don't Paint Houses. This is the mystery man in the suit from the painting party, and he doesn't look like he's having a good time.
Yes. So the story is that Ken Narlow was told by someone that Richard Gaikowski was at the painting party. Well, which one of the people that Darlene's sisters named were at the painting party is the witness that told Ken Narlow that Richard Gaikowski was there? That's what I want to know.
And first, for the listeners, I'm going to try and be very clear. There is this idea out there that the painting party never happened. And this is something that Tom Voigt did share once to address it. And he said that Michael Butterfield misinterpreted a quotation from Dean Farron. The quotation was, he didn't expect that they would finish the painting based on how few people were supposed to be at the painting party, but they did finish it, so that this house painting party actually did happen. And I tend to accept that one because I can comprehend that. But do you have any final concluding notes about Richard Gaikowski, or is there anything else you'd like to share about him?
I think I covered it.
So more or less, a fair assessment of your theory would be that people cannot vouch for Gaikowski's whereabouts in 1968 and 69, and he might have alibis for the crimes. And a lot of it is based on not exactly mental gymnastics. It's almost like substituting hard evidence with torturous reasoning. Is that a fair assessment of everything you've said?
Yeah, I think you nailed it, Dad.
Okay, and for anybody who's listening to this, and I'm sure a lot of you out there are going to be disputing a lot of these points, please put your ideas in the comments section down below. Share anything you would like about Richard Gaikowski as a Zodiac suspect. And if you want to send larger things, you can write me at BlackBoxOnlineRadio@AOL.com. And we're going to move on to the next segment.